In the 5th year after being reclaimed by my birth parents, they prepared a lavish meal for me for the very first time. Yet, I couldn't find an ounce of joy because their intention was to bestow the corporation I had meticulously built upon my adopted sibling. However, instead of reacting with anger, I agreed instantly, for I had been granted a second chance at life. In my previous existence, I had vehemently opposed relinquishing control of the company, only to be falsely accused of infidelity by my adopted brother. To salvage my relationship with my spouse and parents, I bore the blame for my adopted sibling's arson case and endured imprisonment. Upon my release, I was left to wander the streets, abandoned. My spouse not only remarried my adopted brother, but even my daughter affectionately called him Dad, and my birth parents merely observed with indifference as I succumbed to illness. Thus, after my rebirth, the very first action I took was to accept the invitation from the city's wealthiest matriarch, becoming her adopted son. On the day my former spouse remarried my adopted brother, I would deliver them a special gift. I desired for everyone who had ever wronged me to comprehend without my protection from life's tempests, they would learn just how chilling and unbearable the heavy downpour could be. Mr. Thorne, once you affix your signature to this inheritance agreement, you will officially become Madame Evelyn's son. Madame has no biological children of her own and holds immense aspirations for you. Please, do not disappoint her, the venerable butler advised, presenting me with what I had requested: documentation confirming my simulated demise, a critical illness notice for late-stage leukemia, indicating the patient had merely 1 month to live. I nodded. Please inform Madame Evelyn that 1 month from now, Marcus will cease to exist in this world. There will only be her son Ethan. Evelyn. Bathed in the setting sun's glow, my vehicle sped along the road toward my former home. In the rear seat, I sat quietly, concealing a subtle melancholy as I gazed out the window. No one knew 3 days prior, I had been reborn. In my past life, I was abducted at the age of 7 and taken to a secluded village. Distraught, my parents adopted a boy of the same age named Kenji. Although I was eventually located 10 years later, my parents had already forged a profound bond with their adopted son, while their affection for their biological child me was lukewarm at best. Fortunately, I possessed considerable acumen. Within 5 years, I successfully guided the Thorne Group to a public listing, elevating the Thorne family's standing in City A to unprecedented heights. However, soon after, Kenji committed arson and injured several individuals, facing a 10-year prison sentence. My parents, desperate to shield him, even knelt before me, pleading, "Marcus, you grew up in the wilderness, you're resilient. Your brother Kenji is different. He's been coddled his entire life. If he goes to prison, he'll never endure it." My spouse, Sophia, also made repeated assurances, "Marcus, no matter what transpires, Lily and I will always cherish you. We'll await your return home to reunite." For 10 arduous years, I endured prison life. On the day of my release, other inmates were greeted by their families one after another. I waited from dawn till dusk, but no vehicle from the Thorne or Dawson families ever arrived. During my incarceration, Kenji had usurped my position as the acclaimed CEO. The woman who once vowed to wait for me married Kenji in my 2nd year of imprisonment, and my daughter began to call him Dad. When I learned the truth, my hair turned white overnight. At the culmination of my life, I lay dying in a muddy alley, only to witness my daughter, Lily, elegantly dressed, emerging from a luxurious car. She covered her nose, her face contorted with revulsion. "Dad, why did you bring me to see this vagrant? I don't wish to look at him." Beneath a black umbrella, my parents clung to Kenji's arms, their eyes cold and disdainful. How could we have begotten such a dishonorable son? The Thorne family's reputation is in ruins. Sophia stood farthest away. When I extended a trembling hand toward her, she averted her gaze. Now, I had returned to the year Kenji committed his crime. This time, I resolved to abandon them all first. As I opened the door to my residence, I overheard my daughter, Lily, throwing a tantrum in the living room. "I don't want Dad. I want Uncle. Uncle buys me toys and takes me for ice cream. Dad only compels me to do things I despise. I hate him." I listened in silence, biting my lower lip. A sharp ache pierced my heart. Lily had a delicate stomach. Even while managing thousands of employees at work, I never forgot to oversee her meals. But Kenji indulged her every whim, becoming closer to her than a true father. Years of devotion had earned only my daughter's animosity. After being reborn, I decided never to care for her again. I walked into the living room, without even a glance at Lily, calmly instructing the maid, "Open the refrigerator and retrieve all the ice cream. From now on, the young lady can consume whatever she desires, do whatever she wishes. No one is permitted to stop her." Lily looked at me, astonished. "Really?" "Indeed," I replied, gazing at her without the slightest warmth. "You wish to see your uncle, do you? Later, I'll take you there. You can remain at the old residence for as long as you please. Even if you never return, it's perfectly acceptable." Lily cheered and dashed off to pack her small backpack. I glanced at Sophia, whose delicate and gentle demeanor had once deceived me into accepting blame for Kenji. Now that I comprehended her true heartlessness, I felt only weariness and detachment. Under my scrutiny, Sophia grew uneasy, her elegant brows furrowing. "You're not acting like yourself today. What has occurred?" I gave a casual tug at my lips. "Nothing. I merely realized that I no longer wished to lead such an exhausting life. Soon, I would feign my death and vanish from the Thorn family registry. What befell the Thorn group would be of no concern to me. As for Sophia and Lily, they would no longer be my spouse and daughter. Why should I deplete myself for the sake of others?" Just then, a slender hand landed lightly on my shoulder. Sophia gently squeezed it, her voice as soft as a flowing stream. "Then when will you spend more time with us, Marcus? Even if you cease working, our family's assets are more than sufficient to ensure that you and Lily live a life of luxury. Why subject yourself to such hardship?" My body stiffened. I recalled how she had tricked me into taking the blame in my past life and shrugged off her hand, fixing my gaze firmly on her. Sophia grew even more uncomfortable under my stare. Just as tension escalated, I suddenly smiled, as if the coldness moments ago had been an illusion. "Return to the old house with me. I have an announcement to make." At the Thorn family's ancestral estate, the moment Lily entered the door, she flung herself into Kenji's arms, sweetly feigning adoration. "Uncle, I missed you so much, Uncle. You look so dashing today, Uncle. Your smile is so captivating." At home, Lily was typically a small tyrant who loved to weep and throw tantrums, but in front of Kenji, her words were as sweet as honey. I stood to the side, my expression serene, glancing out of the corner of my eye at Sophia, only to find her also gazing at Kenji with indulgent affection. Sensing my gaze, Sophia quickly averted her eyes. Just as she was about to speak, Kenji, holding Lily's hand, approached. The two of them were clad in matching parent-child attire. "Sister-in-law, observe the matching outfits I purchased for Lily. Aren't they charming?" Kenji said, pulling Lily's hand and making a comical face at Sophia. Sophia was slightly taken aback. Because I was present, she restrained her smile and merely gave a small nod. She stated, "Lily never wears pink. Only you could persuade her." A flicker of pride crossed Kenji's face as he turned to me. "Brother, Lily adores me so much, are you envious?" Looking at that innocent-looking face, memories of my past life flashed through my mind like a high-speed reel. My fingernails dug sharply into my palm, the pain reminding me to remain composed. "Marcus," my father's voice came from nearby. "All the dishes today are your favorites. Come, taste them." Snapping out of it, I turned my head and saw a table laden with home-cooked dishes, all prepared to my preferred light flavors. In my past life, I had a delicate stomach and couldn't tolerate spicy food, yet Kenji relished everything fiery hot, and every family gathering, the table would be covered in red dishes. Only once had there been an exception, and it was today. My father had personally prepared an entire table of my favorite foods, a rare occurrence. Just when I believed I had finally received a shred of familial love, I heard the cruelest words. "Marcus, your mother and I have deliberated. From now on, you need not concern yourself with the company anymore. Focus on tending to the family. We'll entrust everything to Kenji to manage." The pressure from all sides at that moment made me feel like a thief, as if I had stolen something that rightfully belonged to Kenji. No one remembered that before the company's public listing, I had been hospitalized multiple times from overwork, while Kenji was leisurely vacationing abroad. No one remembered that when my mother was diagnosed with liver cancer and required a transplant, it was I, freshly recovered from a serious illness, who ascended the operating table without hesitation to save her. At the dinner table, Lily's small face flushed red with anxiety. "Just give it to Uncle. Why are you being so stingy?" Sophia's voice was gentle and sweet. "Marcus, even if you don't work, I can support you and Lily." My mother waved her hand grandly. "I'm still the head of this family. This decision is final." Tears welled up in my father's eyes as he pleaded, "Marcus, as an older brother, you should defer to your younger brother." In my past life, on this very day, I had erupted in anger, severed ties with the entire family, and vowed that unless I died, I would never hand the company over to Kenji. Now, sweeping my gaze across everyone at the table, mother, father, spouse, daughter, and the so-called brother, I offered a calm, faint smile and spoke first. "Mom, Dad, actually, I have an announcement to make. Starting tomorrow, I intend to transfer the company to Kenji and formally return to family life." This decision instantly transformed the tense atmosphere into one of joy. My mother and father beamed at me with smiles I had never witnessed before, eagerly placing food into my bowl. "Marcus, your filial piety and understanding truly fill us with pride. But Kenji is still a bit too naive." Amid Lily's shrieks of "Long live Uncle," and the food piling up like a mountain in my bowl, I had absolutely no appetite. Raising my eyes to look at Sophia, she was indeed gazing at Kenji with undisguised affection. No one noticed when I quietly slipped away. After that family banquet, I never returned to the company. 10 days later, while I was running on the treadmill at the gym, my phone vibrated. Opening it, I saw that Kenji had tagged me in a post. He had uploaded a selfie from the CEO's office, clad in a sharp business suit, posing exactly as I used to, projecting the image of a business elite. The caption read, "Leading Thorn Group into a new era." Within less than a minute, the entire family had excitedly responded. My mother commented, "Good son, strive hard. The future of Thorn Group rests on you." My father commented, "Our Kenji has truly matured overnight." Lily wrote, "Uncle is the best." Sophia's comment was only a single word, "You can do it." Seeing these words of warm encouragement, words no one had ever directed at me, I felt a sharp pang in my eyes. The exhaustion from my workout suddenly overwhelmed me. I turned off the treadmill and was about to take a shower when another message appeared from Kenji. "Brother, tonight the whole family is holding a celebration for me at Cloud Pavilion. You must attend. There's a surprise awaiting you." Kenji's final message was a photo. In the picture, Sophia's attire was half undone at her shoulders, her bare skin faintly exposed. The implication required no explanation. After staring at Kenji's last message for half an hour, I proceeded directly to Cloud Pavilion and pushed open the door to the private room. Inside, familiar voices reached my ears. "Sophia, when do you intend to divorce him? Don't tell me you've actually developed genuine feelings for him after all this time?" After a brief silence, Sophia's clear, pleasant voice replied, "How could that be? Marcus is nothing compared to you. If not for the engagement, I would never have married him in the first place. Kenji, you've just assumed control of the company, everything is still precarious. I need to remain by your side to help you keep him in check." Separated only by a door, I heard every word clearly. A rush of blood surged backward in my veins, dizziness washing over me, and I had to be supported by a passing waiter. "Mr. Thorne, are you well?" I forced myself to stand firm. "I'm fine." Lifting my reddened eyes, I saw a commotion at the entrance, my mother and father distributing tips to the staff, their faces beaming with joy. I stood there, observing the scene unfold, my eyes growing more and more stinging. It wasn't until my father noticed me that he forced an awkward smile. "Marcus, why are you here?" They had deliberately concealed the celebration from me, fearing I would arrive and create a scene, yet I still appeared at the banquet hall. Looking at my father's embarrassed face and my mother's displeased expression, I felt utterly out of place. "I'm here to demonstrate support for my brother," I said, my voice hoarse, my gaze dark and wet. "Or am I so worthless now that I'm not even permitted to attend a family gathering?" My pale face made it impossible not to feel pity. My mother frowned, and just as a storm seemed imminent, a cheerful shout resonated behind me. "Grandma! Grandpa! In craft class today, I made a small red flower for Uncle. I want to give it to the one I love most." Lily came running over, mistaking me for Kenji, and jumped into my arms with a bright, innocent smile. This lively, affectionate look, I hadn't witnessed it since she was an infant. Back then, that chubby little creature had clung to me wherever I went. But now, the moment Lily looked up and realized it was me, she recoiled as if she had seen a ghost. She concealed the handmade flower behind her back, her eyes filled with disgust and wariness. A searing, unspeakable pain pierced my heart. I stood there silently watching. At that moment, the door to the private room opened. Kenji and Sophia emerged, shoulder to shoulder. The moment they saw me, both of their faces changed. Sophia's eyes flickered with panic. She immediately distanced herself from Kenji, hurried over to me, and asked gently, "When did you arrive? Why didn't you come inside?" I stared at this woman with whom I had shared a bed for 7 years. Once, I had believed her coldness was simply her nature. Now I realized her indifference stemmed from never having loved me at all. This marriage had only been her compromise, a sacrifice to protect another man. The corners of my lips curled into a mocking smile, my eyes full of bitter disappointment. "This is your family gathering," I said. "How could I dare intrude?" Hearing that, Sophia froze, an inexplicable tightness gripping her chest. "Marcus, don't utter such things." No amount of comforting words could heal the wound in my heart. I turned to look at my parents, my voice calm. "I still have matters to attend to. I will not disturb your family reunion." As I finished speaking, a violent cough suddenly shook my body, and I quickly covered my mouth. A spurt of fresh blood gushed into my palm. My mother and father's expressions shifted slightly. Even Sophia's fingers twitched instinctively. Just as everyone was about to step forward to check on me, Kenji suddenly clutched his chest and cried out in pain. "Mom! Dad! My heart, it aches." At his cry, everyone's attention immediately shifted away from me. My mother hurried to call an ambulance. My father anxiously rubbed his chest to assist him with breathing. Sophia ran off to purchase emergency medicine, and Lily was bawling, tears streaming down her face as she chanted, "Uncle, don't hurt, don't hurt. I'll let my dad hurt for you instead." I hadn't walked far, but hearing Lily's words felt like my feet were filled with lead. I closed my eyes, gritting my teeth as I forced myself to continue walking, hailing a cab by myself and heading alone to the hospital. The doctor stated that my heart had suffered from acute emotional distress and that I must no longer become agitated. I remained at home to recover for several days. Other than the housekeeper, neither Sophia nor any of the Thorne family members came to visit me. They were all at the hospital accompanying Kenji. No one even recalled that I was ill too. On New Year's Eve, I was home alone preparing frozen dumplings. All the maids had departed early to spend the holiday with their families. Fortunately, the housekeeper, observing how thin and weak I had become, had made some dumplings in advance and left them in the freezer. I silently watched the steam rise from the pot, the sole source of warmth in the entire house. A few days prior, the property management had suddenly notified me that the heating was being disconnected. Even after several complaints, they insisted it couldn't be restored. I knew very well this was likely Kenji's doing. Outside, the temperature was below -10 degrees Celsius, and indoors it felt almost as cold as outdoors. Clad in a thick down jacket, I was just about to scoop out the dumplings when Kenji's video call arrived. "Brother, we're celebrating New Year on an island. Are you managing all right alone at home?" On the screen, Kenji appeared healthy and radiant, wearing a fitted cashmere sweater that was both warm and stylish. Behind him, my mother and father were sipping tea and conversing, and outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Sophia and Lily were igniting fireworks. The warm, joyful atmosphere made my eyes sting, but none of it had any bearing on me. Once again, my entire family had abandoned me, leaving me alone in the cold while they enjoyed a cozy holiday on a tropical island. Yet, strangely, I no longer felt sorrow. I calmly looked into the camera. "I'm doing wonderfully sorry to disappoint you." Kenji smirked provocatively. "Brother, I heard you coughed up blood the other day. Too bad Mom and Dad were too occupied worrying about me to notice. Fearing you might be defrauded by some disreputable doctor, I've frozen your bank cards. If you feel truly unwell, just consume more hot water." Ever since he assumed control of the company, he didn't even bother to feign civility anymore. A shadow flickered across the screen, and Sophia's voice drifted over. "Kenji, with whom are you conversing?" "No one, just wishing a friend Happy New Year," Kenji said casually, then ended the call. But even so, I still overheard Sophia's final words of concern. "Your stomach's delicate. Don't consume too much. Be cautious not to get a stomach ache." They were as close as any genuine couple. I no longer cared whom Sophia loved. What I couldn't accept was even in front of my parents, their intimacy was so blatant, and the two elders turned a blind eye as if it were completely normal. A sharp pain spread through my limbs, and tears welled up in my eyes. At that moment, the doorbell rang. The venerable butler from the Evelyn family arrived, bringing a multitude of New Year's gifts that Madame Evelyn had prepared to compensate for every New Year she had missed from my birth until now, at age 30. "Happy New Year, Mr. Thorne. Madam wishes you all the best, peace, and joy." I had endured my biological family's coldness and betrayal repeatedly, but facing these meticulously prepared gifts, my tears suddenly burst forth uncontrollably. In my 30 years of life, my biological parents had treated me as nothing more than a utility, while Madame Evelyn, who shared no blood with me, treated me like a true son. Deeply moved, I wiped away my tears and stated solemnly, 10 days from now, I'll be at the Evelyn residence, precisely on time. By then, I would truly be reborn. I had only opened half the gifts before I drifted into a deep sleep on the sofa. In the middle of the night, I was jolted awake by a noise upstairs. I was a light sleeper. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw a shadowy figure wandering in the dark. Suddenly, a memory from my past life struck me. A burglar had infiltrated my home once. That time, a strange woman had brazenly entered my bedroom, and when Sophia caught us, she assumed I had been unfaithful. From then on, our relationship had soured. Soon after, rumors about me disseminated throughout our social circle. The entire Thorne family treated me like a disgrace, and coupled with Kenji's arson scandal at the time, they had tacitly permitted me to bear the blame. This time, I reacted swiftly. I dashed into the first-floor bathroom, contacted the Evelyn family, and requested the butler to immediately return with reinforcements. Just as the strange woman was about to shatter a window and force her way in, the butler and his men arrived and subdued her. After providing my statement at the police station, I returned home past midnight. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw Kenji and the others seated neatly in the living room, awaiting me. The New Year's gifts from Madame Evelyn were also neatly stacked in the corner. Kenji picked up a limited edition watch, his eyes wide with amazement. "Brother, we weren't even home for New Year's. Who sent you such expensive gifts? If I'm not mistaken, this watch is one of those rare collector's editions everyone covets, correct? Brother, you wouldn't happen to be cheating on sister-in-law behind her back, would you?" Kenji trailed off, giving Sophia a meaningful look. Sophia's beautiful face clouded over with anger. Lifting her gaze, she stated coldly, "Marcus, I truly underestimated you." Observing her act so serious, I couldn't help but find it amusing. Even though she didn't harbor me in her heart, she could still erupt in fury at the notion that I might be unfaithful. If I hadn't overheard her saying she had never loved me that day, perhaps I would have believed there was a shred of genuine affection. "These gifts belong to a friend. I'm simply safe keeping them for now. My tone was casual, I didn't care whether they believed me or not. The wound on my arm throbbed painfully, and as I was about to retrieve the first aid kit, Sophia suddenly grasped my wrist. She wasn't her usual gentle self. Her eyes were dark and unfamiliar, her lips pressed tightly together. After a moment, she pointed at the women's shawl on the floor and questioned me coldly, "What kind of woman leaves her shawl at a male friend's house?" She tightened her grip. As I struggled, my wound was pulled, sending a sharp pain shooting through me. I gasped involuntarily. Sophia immediately released me, looking at me strangely. I didn't even use any strength," she murmured as if explaining to herself. But when she saw the blood oozing from my arm, her expression changed drastically. She frowned and asked, "You're hurt? How could you even get injured at home on New Year's Eve?" She looked at me with a mix of disdain and concern, her fingers hesitantly reaching toward my wound. Before she could touch me, I lifted my cold gaze to meet hers. Sophia's hand froze mid-air. "What's with that look?" she asked. After a long moment of staring, I turned and walked to the first-floor bathroom, pulling the door open with a loud bang. The wreckage inside immediately caught Sophia's eyes. My mother and father looked equally stunned. Seeing their reactions, I let out a cold laugh. A burglar broke in. I almost didn't survive to see tomorrow. And all you could think about since earlier was catching me cheating? My mother and father exchanged a glance but said nothing. Sophia let out a soft sigh and walked toward me, her voice filled with guilt. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left you alone at home. Save those words for after I'm dead." I felt nothing inside. My gaze turned cold as I looked at Kenji. "I'm curious," I said slowly. "Security in this upscale neighborhood is notoriously tight. Why would a woman risk breaking in on New Year's Eve? Did she know beforehand that I'd be the only one at home?" At my words, Kenji's eyes flickered for a split second before he forced a calm reply. "Maybe she had been observing you for a while. Or perhaps you two were acquainted before, who knows?" I let out a short, mocking laugh and nodded. "Fine. If she's that dangerous, we should file a police report and initiate an investigation." "Don't report it." Kenji's voice suddenly rose sharply. His unusual reaction made everyone look at him. My mother and father seemed to realize something. Their faces turned pale. As Kenji grew so anxious he was on the verge of tears, they rushed to comfort him, wiping his tears and turning to me with a half-coaxing, half-threatening tone. "The woman's already apprehended. What's the point of creating a spectacle? Do you believe it will be something to be proud of if this becomes public, Marcus? Just let it go, all right?" I used to believe that my parents favored Kenji simply because they didn't perceive his true nature. So I tore off Kenji's mask right in front of them. Yet, when their own son had nearly been ruined, they still chose to protect the very one who initiated it all. Why? A tearing pain split through my mind. I stared at them, my eyes filled with countless invisible blades, severing the last sliver of attachment I had to the Thorn family. A slender hand draped over my shoulder, and Sophia's voice sounded by my ear. "Marcus, as long as you're okay, I'll handle the police and everything else. I promise you'll never be in danger again, all right?" She was afraid too that if we pressed charges, Kenji would be implicated. The pain in my chest intensified. As I turned and was about to push Sophia away, someone slammed hard into my lower back. I crashed to the ground, the searing pain in my spine sharp, but not as piercing as the words Lily screamed while weeping. "Bad daddy. It's you. You bullied uncle and made him cry. Hit him. Hit the bad daddy." Lily, despite Sophia pulling her back, kept struggling, kicking at me with her small legs. At that moment, the world slowed around me. All I could see was Lily and Sophia. All I could hear was that shrill cry, "Hit him. Hit the bad daddy." Suddenly, tears slipped from the corner of my eyes. Something inside me swelled unbearably fast. My heart could no longer keep pace, and the suffocating feeling grew stronger and stronger. A few seconds later, I could no longer hold on. Darkness swallowed my vision, and I passed out. When I regained consciousness, I was in a hospital room. The warm breath I exhaled misted up the oxygen mask, forming a thin layer of white fog. My body felt unbearably heavy, as if filled with lead. Even moving a fingertip was a struggle. A nurse, noticing I was awake, immediately walked over. "Mr. Thorne, you're finally awake. You've been unconscious for 3 days." Mrs. Evelyn came by several times. "If you hadn't woken up, the entire hospital staff would have been ready to leap from the roof." Her words made me laugh weakly. I asked in a frail voice, "Besides Mrs. Evelyn, did anyone else visit?" The nurse shook her head. "No, I've been here the whole time. I didn't see anyone else. It was your housekeeper who called the ambulance. Luckily, the internal bleeding was cleared in time, or else you would have spent the rest of your life as a vegetable." I frowned. I remembered collapsing at home with the whole family present. Yet, after I fainted for so long, not a single family member came to the hospital? A chill rose in my chest. I remembered the doctor's orders not to get agitated, so I silently took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. I lay in the hospital bed until nightfall. During that time, Mrs. Evelyn called upon hearing that I had woken up. After expressing a few words of concern, her tone shifted to one of deep anger when she mentioned Sophia. That girl from the Dawson family, she's absolutely outrageous. You nearly lost your life, and she's still hovering around that Kenji. I'm going to teach the Dawson family a lesson and give you justice. At first, I didn't know what she was referring to. I was still puzzled when Kenji suddenly sent me a video. In the video, he was also in a hospital room, wearing a patient gown. His damp bangs clung to his pale forehead, making him look pitifully weak. By his bedside, my mother and father sat with red, swollen eyes from crying. A slender woman's hand patiently spoon-fed Kenji some soup. On her left hand, the wedding ring she wore was identical to mine. Who else could it be but Sophia? After sipping the soup, another small hand reached out, offering a peeled orange perfectly cleaned, without a trace of white pith to his mouth. A child's voice softly murmured, "Uncle, please get better soon. I don't want you to be sick." So, the reason the whole family hadn't appeared was because Kenji had been hospitalized too, and they had all been with him. I closed my eyes and turned off the video. Family affection had already become a luxury I could no longer afford. All I desired now was a bit of peace. Yet even such a simple wish couldn't be granted. Shortly after sending the video, Kenji and the others arrived, pushing his wheelchair into my hospital room. "Marcus." Sophia's voice was hoarse, looking at me as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. There were faint dark circles under her eyes. In just 3 days, she had become noticeably thinner, her face visibly worn and exhausted. Seeing the whole family assembled like this, a bad feeling rose in my chest. Before I could speak, Kenji suddenly knelt beside my bed, crying, "Brother, I've been diagnosed with a terminal illness. I don't have much time left." As soon as he finished speaking, my father covered his face and began to sob uncontrollably. My mother sighed heavily, patted my father's shoulder, and looked at me with reddened eyes. "We came here today to ask a favor," she said tearfully. "We want to borrow Sophia for a little while to take a set of memorial photos with Kenji before he passes." Memorial photos? The absurdity of the request made me sit there silently for a long moment, making sure I hadn't misheard. Looking at the family's expressions, faces full of certainty that I would agree, I let out a cold laugh and said with biting sarcasm, "And what if I refuse?" "Marcus, how can you be so heartless? Your brother is dying." My father rushed at me, shouting with bloodshot eyes, the shock and disgust in his expression barely contained. Through his furious gaze, I saw my own colorless, blood-drained reflection. I spoke calmly, "You can spoil him all you want, that's none of my concern. But as long as Sophia and I are still legally married, I will never agree to this ridiculous request. Unless," I looked up at Sophia, my gaze icy, "unless we divorce." Sophia froze for a few seconds. Maybe it was my imagination, but it seemed as if her pupils trembled slightly, a flash of anger briefly crossing her eyes. After a moment, her red lips parted, and her voice came out cold and clear, "Fine, let's get a divorce. Marcus, I'm not just going to take wedding photos with Kenji this time, I'm going to give him a grand wedding." That day in the hospital room, Sophia left me with those words before helping Kenji away. In the now empty ward, I was the only one left. I sat there in a daze for a long time, so long that even my tears had dried before I finally made up my mind. At dawn, a taxi pulled up in front of the luxurious villa. Wearing nothing but a thin hospital gown, I got out of the car, looked up at the house that had once been my and Sophia's marital home, and tightened my grip around the lighter in my palm before stepping inside. Traces of a family life were everywhere inside the house. Lily's favorite doll still lay on the carpet. The graffiti on the wall hadn't been cleaned. Sophia's shawl was casually draped over the back of the sofa. Just a few days ago, mother and daughter had been playing house together in the living room. My throat moved slightly as I tore my gaze away and headed upstairs. I went straight to the master bedroom's walk-in closet. Among the rows of expensive suits, I quickly found a cheaply made white blazer, ordinary in craftsmanship. It was the one I had purchased during our honeymoon in Las Vegas the year Sophia and I got married. That night had coincided with a mass wedding event in Las Vegas. The entire street was ablaze with lights. I had randomly bought a white blazer from a street vendor and pulled Sophia into the crowd to join the festivities. We were both intoxicated that night, dancing wildly among strangers. After one dance, Sophia's hand around my waist refused to let go. Her bright, intoxicated eyes looked up at me with a tenderness deep enough to drown in. She said she thought she had genuinely fallen in love with me. Back then, I didn't understand. Now I finally did. It was also that night that Sophia conceived Lily. They say that children born from love are especially beautiful. Lily, as a child, had a round little face, pale, soft skin, and bright, lively eyes like grapes, adorable and clever. She truly was a beautiful child. But just like her mother, her eyes and heart were always full of Kenji. I took the white blazer and our wedding photo to the garden. These two things that had once meant so much to me were instantly consumed by flames when I lit the fire. At the end, a gust of wind scattered the ashes. My ties with Sophia and Lily were completely severed. I was about to leave when I suddenly heard noises at the door, followed by bursts of cheerful laughter. "Lily, your mommy and daddy are getting divorced. How about uncle becomes your new daddy?" That gentle voice reaching my ears felt like a knife stabbing straight into my chest. The next second, Lily cried out excitedly, "Okay. Lily doesn't like daddy. Lily loves uncle. Lily wants uncle to be her daddy." Kenji sounded so smug, his voice dripping with sugary coaxing. "Good girl. Go take your bath now. After you finish, I'll reward you with a chocolate candy." He spoke in the same tone people use to train a dog. Lily noticed nothing amiss. Her tiny figure, not even tall enough to reach the doorknob properly, toddled off to the bathroom to run the water herself. Hiding in the guest room, I felt an inexplicable wrenching pain in my chest. Just as Sophia entered after parking her car, a figure rushed into her arms. Kenji hugged her slender waist, his tone full of fawning eagerness. "Sophia, I've waited so long for this day." As he spoke, he impatiently began unbuttoning Sophia's clothes, his voice low and coaxing. "I've got a surprise prepared for you tonight." Sophia's cheeks flushed slightly, but she pressed his hand down, her voice soft and gentle as she reminded him, "Lily hasn't gone to bed yet. Don't let the child see. Lily's being such a good girl. She just asked to take a bath by herself," Kenji said, his eyes burning. "Why don't we head back to the bedroom?" Kenji wrapped his arms around Sophia's neck, and the two of them kissed and tangled their way to the master bedroom. After I heard the master bedroom door slam shut, I waited a few more moments before stepping out of the guest room. My face was so pale it made me look even worse than I had in the hospital. Lifting my gaze toward the second-floor master bedroom, my eyes were filled with nothing but disgust. I was about to leave when suddenly a sharp scream came from the bathroom. "Ah, Lily!" I burst into the bathroom. Through the steam, I saw her on the floor and quickly helped her up. The moment she clearly saw my face, she shoved me away. "Who told you to come back? I have a new daddy now. I don't need you anymore." The coldness in her eyes cut through me, a harsh awakening. I released Lily, stood, and said with chilling calm, "You're right. Since you have a new daddy, you no longer need my protection." As a last vestige of fatherly concern before leaving, I added, "Eating candy before bed will rot your teeth. Be careful not to get cavities." That was my final exchange with Lily. Sopping wet, Lily watched me leave, a strange unease stirring within her. But the thought of her handsome, gentle uncle quickly pushed it away. The wedding of the Thorne and Reed families was small, understood by all to be far from honorable. Yet, Kenji, elegantly suited, still posed for photos and sent them to me. "Brother, my wedding's about to start. Too bad you won't be here. I look pretty handsome in a suit, don't I? Sophia says I'm even more handsome than you were back then." As those messages arrived, I was at a private airfield, boarding a helicopter. My only possession was a small briefcase containing documents that sealed the Thorne family's business fate. I chuckled sarcastically at the constant notifications, then removed my SIM card, snapped it in half, and tossed it into a bin. I instructed the Evelyn family's confidential security team, release news of my death half an hour after takeoff, and ensure Kenji receives my parting gift. The team leader bowed slightly. "Understood, young master." The helicopter waited at the red-carpeted stairs. I ascended, taking one last look at City A's sky. It was as blue as the day I was brought home to my parents. This time, I was leaving forever. 2 hours later, the plane touched down. Marcus ceased to exist, replaced by Ethan, the newly recovered heir of the Evelyn family. As for Sophia and Kenji, betrayal and abandonment awaited them. The Thorne family's empire would soon be devoured by the brutal corporate world. I would make sure everyone who wronged me understood the cold, cruel rain when there was no one left to shield them. Sophia, arm in arm with my mother, slowly walked the floral path. Little Lily, a flower girl, scattered petals. Step by step, Sophia approached Kenji. The man she loved for 10 years stood before her, yet her heart felt oddly empty. Images of Marcus in his wedding suit flickered in her mind. Just then, the wedding screen lit up with Marcus's face. "Hello everyone. I'm Kenji's older brother, Marcus. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the wedding because I'm already deceased." The venue erupted. Sophia froze, her ring slipping from her finger with a sharp clink. Marcus displayed a medical report, stage 3 leukemia and 1 month left to live, clearly visible. With a pale, bloodless face, he spoke slowly, "Mom, Dad, I was too petty. Even when Kenji was supposedly terminally ill, I still refused to lend him my spouse for wedding photos." He paused, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "But it's fine now. I've given her to him completely. You won't blame me anymore, will you?" He chuckled, a hollow sound. "Congratulations to my ex-wife and my brother. I wish you a long and happy life together." As Marcus finished, 2 streams of blood suddenly poured from his nose. He quickly covered his face, and the recording cut off. The screen went dark, leaving the hall in a heavy, deathly silence. Sophia stood, disbelief etched on her face. An unspeakable bitterness overwhelmed her, and the ring slipped again, falling to the floor. My mother and father were equally stunned, speechless for a long time. It wasn't until Lily innocently asked, "Grandma, Grandpa, what does cremation mean?" that they snapped out of it, a stabbing pain piercing their hearts. How can a sister-in-law marry her husband's brother when her husband isn't even cold in the grave yet? The Thorne family has truly lost their minds. An elder angrily rose, followed by other disgusted guests. In a blink, the grand banquet hall became cold and deserted. Kenji's face twisted as if he'd swallowed a fly. He cursed Marcus 1,000 times. Why? Why couldn't he just die quietly? Why ruin everything, even at death's door? Mr. Thorne, choking with sobs, said, "Why didn't that child tell us he was ill?" Kenji's heart skipped a beat. He quickly suppressed his anger, looking at Mr. Thorne with aggrieved innocence. "Dad, my brother willingly divorced Sophia. But now he's pulling this stunt at the wedding, isn't it just to get back at me? I don't care if he humiliates me, but what about the Thorne family's reputation?" Just as he finished, a sharp, cold laugh echoed from the audience. Everyone turned to see someone still there, a tall woman in a sharply tailored black suit, exuding a powerful presence. Her phoenix-like eyes swept over Kenji, making his spine stiffen. Sophia frowned, her voice indifferent. "Who are you?" "You're not on the guest list." The woman, radiating effortless poise and disdain, replied in a frosty voice, "You're not worthy of knowing my name." Sophia lunged for the woman's arm. Before she could touch her, several bodyguards restrained her. The sudden confrontation made Kenji stumble back, pale as a sheet. Who are you?" The woman curled her lips in a mocking smile, raising her left hand slightly. A silver family ring on her index finger gleamed. When the Thornes and Sophia saw the ring, their faces shifted from anger to shock. That was the family crest of the top-tier conglomerate, the Sterling family. Seeing their reactions, the woman sneered slightly, motioning the bodyguards to release Sophia. She then tossed a thick stack of documents in Sophia's face, her icy gaze sweeping over everyone. "Open your eyes and see clearly. These are all the injustices Marcus endured over the years." Her voice hardened. "Everyone who wronged him, every last one, won't escape." With that, the woman turned coldly, leading the bodyguards out, leaving a hall full of stunned, speechless people. Mr. Thorne bent down, picking up the scattered documents. He vaguely saw organ transplant before Kenji snatched them, his face bloodless. Kenji forced a smile to hide his panic. "Dad, Marcus's body is en route to the crematorium. If we hurry, we might still see him one last time." His hands holding the documents trembled slightly. A flash of suspicion crossed Mr. Thorne's eyes, but thinking of Marcus alone at the crematorium made his heart ache sharply. "You're right. We must go now. We cannot allow Marcus to depart this world so lonely." The family immediately left for the crematorium. The crematorium was in a remote mountainous area. When they arrived, thick black smoke already billowed from the chimney. Mr. and Mrs. Thorne froze, their voices choked. "Marcus, how could he?" Sophia grabbed a staff member by the collar, her eyes bloodshot. "Where is Marcus's body? Did you already cremate it?" The startled staff member stammered, handing over death records. "We did receive a male body named Marcus today. He had a surgical scar on the left side of his abdomen. He had undergone a liver resection surgery. I don't know if he's the person you're referring to." Mrs. Thorne snatched the file. The moment she saw Marcus's photo, her eyes turned red. "It's Marcus." She and Mr. Thorne leaned in, scanning the details, quickly spotting the surgery records from 5 years ago. Marcus had indeed undergone a liver resection. Back then, Mrs. Thorne had urgently needed a liver transplant. But after Marcus's surgery, he had rushed abroad for business, got caught in a conflict, and only returned safely after 3 months. He never mentioned the surgery to avoid worrying his parents. However, what Kenji had told them was that Marcus, terrified of the surgery, had refused to donate his liver and had run off abroad to hide. Both parents turned shocked gazes to Kenji. "Kenji, didn't you claim it was you who donated your liver to save your mother? That Marcus fled because he didn't wish to help? Have you been deceiving us all this time?" Kenji was momentarily speechless, then forced himself to argue, "I didn't lie. Brother truly did go abroad back then. But the medical records were black and white, proof Marcus had undergone a liver resection. Who else could have saved their mother?" Rage boiled in Mr. Thorne's chest. He stared at the boy he'd loved and cherished, overwhelmed by unbearable pain. You deceitful wretch." Since Kenji was young and sickly, Mr. Thorne had given him almost all his attention. Even after finding Marcus, he tried to treat both sons equally, perhaps even favoring Kenji. He never imagined Kenji not only stole Marcus's credit but also drove a wedge between Marcus and the family, making Mrs. Thorne believe Marcus was a cold-hearted ingrate. That misunderstanding had led to their relationship growing colder over the years. Thinking his biological son had died of a terminal illness, lonely and abandoned, felt like someone had ripped a chunk out of Mr. Thorne's heart. Panic flashed across Kenji's face. He knelt, begging desperately, "Dad, I didn't intend to deceive you. You raised me for so many years. If I could have saved Mom, I would have done it without hesitation. But I couldn't." He looked from one parent to the other. "Mom, Dad, Marcus died because of his own illness. It had nothing to do with me. We can still be a happy family like before, right? I'm still your good son, okay?" Hearing such shameless words, Mr. Thorne's eyes burned with fury. He raised his hand and slapped Kenji hard across the face. "Get out! Get out of the Thorne family. From now on, we have no son like you." A red, swollen handprint immediately appeared on Kenji's face. He stared at Mr. Thorne in disbelief, his brows furrowing. "You hit me? You're hitting me over something that occurred so long ago?" Mr. Thorne, trembling with rage, charged forward to strike him again. "You made Marcus suffer so much. Why the hell shouldn't I hit you?" Sophia hesitated, but still stepped forward to shield Mr. Thorne. "Kenji, She glanced at Kenji. With his red, swollen face and disheveled appearance, he looked utterly pathetic. But to Sophia, he now seemed completely false. His tears were fabricated. His kindness was fabricated. Even his so-called love for her might have been fabricated. Only because of their long-standing childhood bond did she step in to protect him. Mr. Thorne's eyes burned with anger and grief. "Sophia, are you truly still attempting to defend the man who caused Marcus's demise?" Sophia froze. Thinking of my death, her gaze toward Kenji grew colder and darker. Silently, she stepped aside. Mr. Thorne glared at Kenji, shouting, "I was blind. I welcomed a wolf into my home. I only saw your true face after Marcus died. I'll never forgive you. Hand over all the properties and shares under your name." Hearing this, Kenji wiped his tears and slowly stood. He sneered with contempt, "Uncle, that's not going to happen." No one anticipated Kenji to be this brazen. My father and he argued heatedly, tearing all pretense apart. The scene was as ugly as it could get. However, the company's shares and official seals were all in Kenji's possession. Even after several lawsuits, the Thorne family lost every case. Mrs. Thorne was so infuriated she suffered a heart attack and was admitted to the ICU. After frantic emergency treatment, she regained consciousness. When she awoke, her speech was slurred, but she kept calling Marcus's name. Beside her, Mr. Thorne's eyes were red with tears. "It's all my fault. I couldn't see through him, treated a thankless wolf like a treasure." Kenji had frozen all their accounts and used Mrs. Thorne's life to threaten my father, forcing him to sell off his real estate, jewelry, and luxury cars to Kenji at dirt cheap prices. No one in City A is willing to lend you a penny now. Even if you desired to go through formal auction procedures, it would take at least 6 months. Do you truly believe your wife's health will last that long? Are you willing to merely observe her perish in agony? My father stared at Kenji's cold, ruthless face, feeling the blood in his veins turn to ice. Clasping his chest, he said with a trembling voice, How could your heart be so vicious?" Kenji smiled faintly. "How can you blame me for being ruthless? You're the ones who were foolish. When I was still residing under your roof, I had to flatter you, terrified you'd expel me if I made even one mistake. Now that Marcus is deceased, why should I show you any respect?" He tossed the asset transfer contracts at my father's feet, his voice impatient. "My time is precious. Think carefully before you come begging." My father stared in disbelief at the boy he had once cherished so dearly, almost fainting from the blow. Without a second glance, Kenji turned and departed. A while later, several security guards physically removed Mr. Thorne from the company building. He never imagined he'd be expelled from his own company. He wandered aimlessly down the street, dazed. Just as a car was about to strike him, someone yanked him back. My father looked up at the young man who had saved him. The young man showed his press badge. "Are you Mr. Thorne? I'm Clara, a journalist for the Lost Stars Reunited program. We heard you adopted the current CEO Kenji about 15 years ago. Would you be willing to speak with us?" Upon hearing this, my father's eyes lit up, as if he had found a lifeline in a sea of despair. He nodded eagerly. Of course. Ask me anything you wish to know it, I'll disclose it." That night, Kenji returned home, casually tossing his suit jacket aside. Sophia still hadn't returned. Ever since the wedding, she had been finding excuses not to come home, either social engagements or business trips. Kenji, recalling their secret rendezvous behind Marcus's back, was filled with suspicion, but he knew he was in no position to complain, so he buried his frustration deep inside. Just as he was stewing, Lily ran over. "Daddy, can you tell me a story tonight?" Lily's eyes and facial features looked so much like Marcus's that Kenji froze, his face darkening. "A story?" He grabbed the storybook, tore it into shreds, and flung the pieces at Lily's head. "You're not even my daughter. Why should I tell you a story?" He watched her start to cry. "Crying again? I hate children who cry. Be silent, do you understand me?" Lily's eyes widened in shock. The fierce, hostile man before her was nothing like the gentle uncle she remembered. Tears streamed down her face as she trembled uncontrollably. Kenji grabbed her arm and twisted it hard. "Stop crying. Wah, I want daddy. I don't want uncle, I want daddy." Lily sobbed uncontrollably, her wail splitting the air. Kenji's head throbbed with rage. Finally losing all patience, he grabbed her by the collar and tossed her into the bathroom. "You enjoy crying so much? Cry all you wish in there." Click. The door locked behind her. In the pitch-black bathroom, Lily felt like monsters were lurking, ready to pounce. She screamed and cried until her voice went hoarse, but no one came. Eventually, exhausted, she curled up in a corner and whimpered softly, "I want daddy. I don't want uncle." Meanwhile, at a private club, Sophia checked her phone. It was 4 in the morning, dawn was only an hour away. The screen was full of missed calls and messages from Kenji, urging her home. Sophia frowned and coldly switched off her phone. Her chest felt tight, as if something heavy were lodged inside. She sighed deeply. Since Marcus's death and Kenji's move into her home, they had been constantly quarreling. When she was with Marcus, they'd converse endlessly about finance, music, international affairs. There was always something to share. But Kenji only cared about luxury cars, designer watches, status, and power. He had a constant need for control, terrified Sophia didn't harbor him in her heart. Conversations between them would break down within a few sentences. Arguments became more and more frequent. She would rather remain out all night than return home. The bitter fruit of betraying Marcus had to be swallowed whole, no one else to blame. Images of Marcus's smile, his voice, his warmth filled her mind. But he would never return. Staggering slightly, Sophia walked out of the lounge. At the end of the hallway, a familiar figure flashed past. Startled, she hurried after it. When she saw the man's sharply defined profile, her blood seemed to boil. Marcus! The man entered a private room guarded by 2 bodyguards. Sophia rushed forward but was immediately blocked. "Miss, this is our young master's private room. No one is permitted entry without his consent." Sophia noticed the badge on the bodyguard's chest. It bore the emblem of the Evelyn family. She suddenly recalled hearing a few days prior that Mrs. Evelyn had found her long-lost son. A shock ran through her. Could this man be the Evelyn family's heir, Ethan? But how could 2 individuals look so remarkably alike? Sophia quickly explained, "My name is Sophia, I'm the CEO of Dawson Capital. Please convey a message to young Master Evelyn. I'm merely here to offer a toast." The bodyguard went inside briefly. When he returned, his face looked even more unpleasant. "Young Master Evelyn stated he's never heard of Dawson Capital and does not know you. He also said to depart." His words were exceedingly blunt. Sophia frowned, just about to force her way in, when her phone suddenly rang. It was the housekeeper, sounding panicked. "Miss Dawson, the young miss has run away from home with the master's memorial photo." Sophia's heart dropped. Without wasting another second, she raced back home. Lily was only 5. Although mischievous, she was timid by nature, so timid she even needed someone to accompany her to the bathroom at night. Why would she run away without a reason? When Sophia arrived, her voice was low and stern. Did someone abuse her? The servants hesitated, afraid to speak. Sophia's tone hardened. "Speak. I promise no one will face repercussions." Finally, a maid stammered out, "It was Mr. Thorne. He locked Miss Lily in the bathroom all night. When I found her in the morning, she was so frightened she collapsed. I rushed to fetch the doctor, but by the time I returned, both Lily and the master's memorial photo were gone." Hearing that Kenji had locked Lily in a dark bathroom for an entire night, a surge of rage rushed through Sophia. Her voice turned hoarse. "Where is Kenji now?" "Mr. Thorne just departed. He said he has an important meeting this morning and couldn't miss it." "Kenji!" Sophia roared and stormed out, heading straight for Thorne Corporation. On the way, she contacted her best friend to help search for Lily and messaged the Thorne parents, asking if Lily had gone to the old family home. When she learned Lily wasn't there either, Sophia's fury only grew. She barged into Kenji's office only to see him passionately kissing a young female subordinate. Her anger exploded. "Kenji, do you even possess a shred of conscience left?" Kenji jumped, hastily fixing his clothes. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Sophia closed her eyes briefly, forcibly suppressing her anger. Her cold gaze swept toward the woman. "Depart." The female subordinate, flustered and terrified, fled. Now, only Kenji and Sophia remained, the air thick with suffocating coldness. Sophia advanced step by step, the icy look in her eyes sharp enough to cut holes through Kenji. A cold sweat broke out on Kenji's back. His voice trembled as he tried to explain, "Wife, it's not what it appears. I was just toying around. Or was it for work?" Sophia sneered. The next second, she grabbed Kenji by the collar, nearly slamming him against the wall. "I must have been blind. I relinquished Marcus for you. If you desire to throw yourself at anyone who crosses your path, I couldn't care less. But you dared to mistreat Lily while I was absent?" You terrified her into running away. I swear I'll make you pay for that. Kenji frantically shook his head. I didn't abuse Lily. I just meant to confine her for a little while. I didn't intend to forget her. Forget her? Sophia's eyes burned red, her teeth clenched so tightly it hurt. She's 5 years old. What monstrous crime could she have possibly committed to deserve being locked up all night? She tightened her grip on Kenji's collar. Kenji's face turned red from lack of air, coughing and clawing at her hands. Through labored breaths, he croaked, she cried too much. Bastard! Hearing such a ridiculous excuse, Sophia's fury boiled over. She slapped him hard. The slap echoed through the office, leaving an angry, blood-red mark across Kenji's face. He stared at Sophia, utterly stunned. You struck me? Don't forget, I control Thorn Corporation now. If you wish to contend with me, I won't hesitate to drag the Dawson family down with me. From the moment Sophia stormed into the office and saw him in another woman's arms, Kenji had known she would lose control. He just hadn't expected her to actually lay hands on him. Kenji straightened up, laughing bitterly, resigned. Sophia, I'm no longer the pushover you once knew. You'll pay for assaulting me. Sophia raised her cold eyes, the ruthless look in them something she had never shown Kenji before, making him feel a sudden, creeping sense of fear. Then proceed, she said coldly. Try me. Sophia, anxious to locate Lily, shoved Kenji away and stormed out without looking back. Kenji rubbed his sore cheek, his teeth clenched tightly, hatred seething in his eyes. Sophia's words echoed mercilessly, I must have been blind to give up Marcus for you. She regretted it? She actually regretted it because of a deceased man? Kenji's hands curled into fists so tight that his nails dug deep into his flesh. He gritted his teeth and muttered, Sophia, just you wait. While he was consumed with thoughts of revenge, his assistant, Robert, walked in and reminded him of a TV interview scheduled that afternoon. Kenji forced himself to calm down and went downstairs. A van from the TV station was already parked at the curb. Seeing it was the station's vehicle, he entered without suspicion. When they arrived at the studio, the female host asked a few standard questions at first, but then her tone abruptly shifted. Mr. Thorne, we've learned that you were adopted by the Thorne family. Over the past decade, have you ever considered meeting your biological parents? The hall fell silent. Kenji's heart skipped a beat, an ominous feeling washing over him. And then his worst fear came true. The curtains slowly lifted. A shabby-looking couple with dark skin and worn-out clothes stepped onto the stage. The moment they saw Kenji, they rushed forward, putting on a heart-wrenching display of reunion. The woman clutched him, sobbing fiercely, as if she would tear her heart out, yet not a single tear actually fell. Kenji, I'm so sorry. Your father and I were too young. We couldn't afford to raise you back then. The woman's slurred, wailing cries echoed throughout the studio. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every twitch of Kenji's frozen expression. Kenji sat rigid in his seat, blood turning cold, staring in shock at the audience. In the front row, Mr. Thorne gave him a cold, twisted smile. Kenji's gaze immediately hardened into icy fury. In a flash, he understood everything. It was Mr. Thorne who had found his biological parents, colluded with the journalists, and set this entire trap to expose his true identity as an abandoned child to the entire world. From the moment he stepped into the studio, his life was already over. Meanwhile, 3 months ago, I had successfully completed my simulated death plan. Now, I had been reborn as the Evelyn family's son Ethan Evelyn. Mrs. Evelyn, whose health was frail, now lived peacefully in Whisperwind Mountain. All family affairs were managed by me. Young Master Evelyn, tonight is the Serenity Park Investment Gala. As a major investor, it would be best if you made an appearance, said Robert, my assistant, nervously standing before me. Facing me, dressed sharply in a tailored suit and focused on reviewing contracts, Robert felt an inexplicable pressure. This gala would also be attended by Miss Sterling, the heiress of another major conglomerate. If I didn't show up, it would come across as arrogance, something that could easily offend important allies. Without lifting my head, I responded indifferently, MHM. Robert's eyes lit up. Young Master Evelyn, does that signify your agreement to attend? I looked up slightly, raising an eyebrow. Is there a problem? No problem. No problem at all. I'll prepare your suit and styling team right away. You're guaranteed to be the most dazzling person there. Hearing that, I shook my head helplessly. I was about to instruct him to maintain a low profile and avoid creating a scene, but before I could speak, he had already dashed off in a frenzy. Chuckling to myself, I lowered my head to continue reviewing the documents when a video call request appeared. Initially, I didn't intend to answer, but my finger accidentally brushed the screen, and the call connected. A vibrant, stunning face filled the screen, delicate features radiating youthful charm. Her previously frowning brows instantly relaxed upon seeing me pick up. Ava cleared her throat and, with a sweet voice, asked, Ethan, why are you ignoring me? Ava was 3 years my senior. We had met at a bar the night I feigned my death. I was in a terrible mood and had drunk a little too much. In the dim lighting, she had approached first. Long, seductive curls framed her face, dazzling earrings dangled from her ears, her striking beauty hit like a force of nature. For the first time in a long while, my heart had raced. Caught up in the drunken haze and the ambiguous atmosphere, we spent a wild, reckless night together. The next morning, I left a bank card with 200,000 yuan on her pillow as a gratuity for the previous night. 200,000? Looks like you were very satisfied last night, huh? At the time, I believed she was merely a bar waitress. I didn't wish to become entangled, so I also wrote her a million yuan check as hush money. I never anticipated 3 days later, at an Evelyn family banquet, she would reappear this time as Miss Sterling, heiress of the Sterling family. And to make matters worse, the Evelyn and Sterling families were rivals in the business world, polite on the surface, hostile underneath. I regretted it deeply and tried to avoid her for several days. Finally, Ava lost her patience and threatened to drag her grandmother to the Evelyn family estate to propose marriage. I couldn't allow that to happen. If you don't desire a scene, Ava said shamelessly, her beautiful face full of mischief, then grant me a proper status. When we're together in private, you must address me as your girlfriend or even your spouse. I had no choice but to agree. But she pushed even further. Half an hour of video calls every day. 2 days of dating every weekend. And if you go on a business trip, I'll fly to wherever you are. What's so clingy about that? You believe you can simply use me and vanish afterward? Fine, I'll go see Madame Evelyn tomorrow and demand justice. Because of her threats, I didn't even dare to answer her calls lately. Now, Ava leaned in close to the camera, her slender, fox-like eyes full of temptation. Tonight your place or mine? Choose one. I immediately grasped the hidden meaning in her words. My body tensed slightly, though my face remained calm. Ava, don't you think it's a bit excessive? I understand that you're young and energetic, but perhaps we should exercise a little restraint. Ava narrowed her eyes at me, smiling slowly. I wasn't afraid of her being direct. It was when she became cunning that I felt a chill of dread. Surely enough, the next second she stood up wearing only a silk nightgown. The graceful line of her neck and shoulders revealed faint traces of a love bite, making my face burn instantly. I'm going to visit Madame Evelyn right now, she said sweetly, and tell her precisely how you mistreated me last night. I was speechless. In the end, I could only yield to her unreasonable demands. After the banquet tonight, I would return home with Ava. Tonight's Serenity Park Investment Gala was a grand event, attracting celebrities and media attention. The flashes of cameras were endless as stars and socialites made their entrances. But the moment the Sterling family's Bentley pulled up, the reporters swarmed outside like bees. Ava stepped out in an elegant black evening gown, her hair meticulously styled into a graceful updo. Her full forehead and perfectly proportioned features made her look noble and mysterious. Everywhere she passed, there were respectful greetings, Miss Sterling. Miss Sterling. When I arrived at the venue, Ava hadn't gone far yet. We maintained a few meters of distance between us, walking separately. Suddenly, one of the reporters shouted, "The Evelyn family's heir is here." Ava's previously distant, indifferent expression brightened slightly at the mention of my name. She paused, stopping in front of a fan who had extended a pen. Smiling faintly, she gracefully took the pen and signed her name with a grand flourish. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught her smirking playfully. I knew instantly she was doing it intentionally. I quickened my pace, trying to pass her swiftly. Unexpectedly, my dress shoes slipped slightly on the carpet, and my body pitched forward. The next second, a hand caught my arm just in time. Ava lowered her gaze, a glint of amusement flickering in her eyes. Mr. Evelyn can't even walk properly? Been working too diligently lately? I glared at her. We locked eyes for just a few seconds, but the surrounding journalists frantically snapped away with their cameras. I didn't think much of the incident at first until midway through the banquet. Ava sent me a screenshot of a trending social media post. Miss Sterling catches the falling Mr. Evelyn, a perfect match for a billionaire sibling romance. Seeing that, my vision went black. If Madame Evelyn saw this, she might faint from sheer anger. I quickly arranged for the trending topic to be removed and stepped out onto the balcony, preparing to call the old lady to gauge her mood. Not far away, I caught sight of a few adults surrounding a child, pushing and shoving him roughly while hurling vicious insults. "You little rascal, stealing directly from Grandpa's hands, huh? Today, we'll teach you a lesson your shiftless parents should have." Several men raised their legs, about to kick the child. "Stop," I barked sharply, frowning as I strode over. The child being assaulted was filthy and scrawny, clutching a greasy chicken drumstick tightly in her hands. I turned my displeased gaze toward the adults. "It's merely a chicken leg. Is that truly a reason to beat a child?" Their faces immediately changed. The head chef, recognizing me as the young master of the Evelyn family, quickly stepped forward to explain, "Mr. Evelyn, if it were merely a few chicken legs, of course we wouldn't resort to this. But this little pilferer keeps returning to steal. Last time at a banquet, she took an entire crate of special grade C cucumbers worth tens of thousands." I turned to look at the little girl. She immediately buried her face in her arms. Guessing she probably had no family to care for her, I sighed and ordered, "Bring her some food. As for the sea cucumber incident, have my assistant resolve it later." Soon, the kitchen staff brought over plates of food. The little girl devoured it desperately. I couldn't bear to watch and gently patted her back. "Slow down. There's plenty more." Gradually, she lowered her guard around me. It was only then I learned that her parents had passed away and her grandmother, her last relative, had died just days ago. She had stolen the sea cucumbers to pay for her grandmother's hospital bills. Something inside me softened. I pulled out a handkerchief and wiped the food from the corner of her mouth. Startled, the little girl recoiled quickly. "And no, don't. I'm dirty. I'll soil your nice things." Seeing the fear in her eyes, I made a decision. I decided to adopt her. It wasn't until later, while helping her bathe, that I discovered she was actually a boy. "My name's Arthur," he said, his voice soft. "Grandma told me to pretend to be a girl. That way, no one would bully me." My heart twisted painfully. I reached out and hugged Arthur tightly. Arthur was far more sensible than most children. He dressed himself, folded his bedding, sat quietly doing homework at night, and ate only a little, trying his best to show he was easy to care for. To bond with him, I took him to an amusement park over the weekend. We rode the carousel together. Arthur wore a little blue Prince outfit with Mickey Mouse ears perched on his head, and for the first time, he smiled brightly into my camera. It was also the first time he ever stated he wanted something, a simple ice cream cone. "Good boy. Since this is your first request for something, you deserve another reward." I held Arthur's hand and led him toward the dessert shop inside the park. Not far away, Lily watched the scene unfold. She frowned deeply, her big, round eyes filling with tears. But remembering how Daddy hated children who cried, she pressed her lips together tightly and forced herself to hold it in. "Daddy!" she suddenly shouted and ran toward me. Arthur looked up in surprise, only to be shoved aside as Lily threw herself into my arms, hugging my leg tightly. I froze for a second, startled. "Ouch!" Arthur tumbled onto the ground, letting out a small cry of pain. He quickly scrambled up. Even though his beloved Prince outfit was now soiled, he didn't cry. He twisted his little hands together nervously, staring at Lily. Lily glared at him fiercely and snapped, "This is my daddy, you little thief." Hearing the word thief, Arthur's lips quivered. He couldn't hold back anymore and was about to cry. My heart ached. I pushed Lily aside and walked over to scoop Arthur into my arms, speaking to him softly, "Don't cry, Arthur. I'm your daddy. Only yours." At that moment, Lily broke down. She stared at me in disbelief as I comforted Arthur, biting her lips hard as tears poured down her cheeks like strings of little pearls. But my attention was fully on Arthur. I didn't even spare Lily a glance. Left with no choice, Lily tiptoed over to me, tilting her head carefully, her little face full of grievance and cautious hope. "Daddy, I'm crying too. Won't you look at me? Don't you want me anymore?" I picked up Arthur and looked at Lily expressionlessly. "I don't know you. I only have a son, his name is Arthur." "Little girl, you should hurry back to your family." Lily's mouth trembled. She grabbed the hem of my clothes and started throwing a tantrum. "You are my daddy. I'm not leaving. Uncle is a big bad guy. He locked me in a dark room and wouldn't even let me eat. He's a big meanie. Wah-ah." I paused, stunned. Only then did I notice that Lily's clothes were torn and there were bruises on her legs. It was clear she really had run away from home. But in my previous life, hadn't Kenji spoiled her terribly? Could fate have changed? Even though I no longer regarded Lily as my daughter, I still called the police and had them notify Sophia. 10 minutes later, Sophia rushed over in a panic. The moment Lily spotted her, she shouted joyfully, "Mommy." Sophia swept her into her arms, holding her tightly as Lily sobbed brokenly in her chest. "Mommy, let's bring Daddy back home, okay? Uncle is so bad." Her daughter's cries felt like knives stabbing straight into Sophia's heart. Holding back her own grief, Sophia gently whispered, "Lily, Daddy is already gone." "You're lying." Lily screamed. "I just saw Daddy. He's mad at me. He was playing with another little boy and no matter how hard I cried, he wouldn't look at me." Sophia's heart pounded violently. She quickly knelt down and asked Lily, "Lily, you truly saw Daddy?" Lily nodded vigorously. "Cross my heart. Only liars are puppies." Sophia's heart raced uncontrollably. If Lily claimed she saw Marcus, then that night at the club it wasn't merely a hallucination or mistaken identity. But what did Lily mean by saying Marcus had a new child? Sophia didn't have time to think it through. She grabbed Lily and headed straight for the security room. Surely enough, on the footage, she saw the man who looked exactly like Marcus. Without hesitation, she informed Marcus's parents of the news. The next day, I went to the office as usual. The moment I stepped inside, someone pulled me into a hug. Ava's arms tightened around me, carrying the soft scent of flowers. Her body heat seeped through the thin layers of fabric, and her breath brushed against my ear. "Why did you abandon our date the other night?" She bit my earlobe lightly playfully, not painfully making my ears burn red. I had something to handle. My voice, under Ava's teasing fingers, suddenly dropped to a lower, hoarser register deep enough to make her shiver slightly. Ava chuckled softly and whispered against my ear, "What could possibly be more important than a date with me? I adopted a child." When I said that, Ava almost thought she had misheard. She felt a mix of confusion and amusement. Still hugging me, she teased seductively, "If you were so fond of children, you should have told me earlier. We can create one ourselves." I elbowed her lightly. As she yelped in mock pain, I walked over to the desk, my tone returning to its usual coolness. "Didn't we agree? We don't interfere in each other's private lives." Ava snorted lightly. "Not interfering? Right. After just a few days apart, you return with a child? What's next? Are you going to appear with a wife and discard me?" Her words were practically dripping with jealousy. I raised an eyebrow. "Who knows? Could happen." His eyebrow arched. "That's a tough call." His words initially stunned Ava, but she quickly regrouped. Ethan's standards were so high that no ordinary gold digger could ever catch his attention. Besides, in their entire social circle, who could possibly make him happier than she could? Ava, the Sterling family's eldest daughter, began to strategize, her calculations more intricate than any social climbing mistress. The office door swung open, and Assistant Robert entered with a bright smile. The moment he saw Ava, however, his expression instantly clouded. He stared at her, wide-eyed, for a few seconds before hesitantly asking, "Miss Sterling, what are you doing here?" He subtly signaled Ava with his eyes, urging her to remain discreet. After all, they were publicly known as rivals. Ava, understanding his unspoken cue, swiftly recomposed herself into her usual cold and distant demeanor. "Business negotiations," she replied indifferently. "Business negotiations." Robert's voice was laced with suspicion. "Are you planning to join young Master Evelyn in acquiring the Thorn Corporation?" The mention of the Thorn Corporation made Ethan's eyes narrow. "What happened to Thorn?" he asked Robert. Realizing his young master was out of the loop, Robert stepped closer and reported in a hushed tone, "Kenji, the former president of Thorn Corporation, has been imprisoned." Imprisoned? Ethan frowned, looking at Robert. Based on his memories from his previous life, Kenji's downfall shouldn't have occurred for another 6 months. Why was it happening so soon? Robert pulled up a trending episode of a recent missing persons reality show and handed his phone to Ethan. "It's all because of this show." Ethan fast-forwarded and watched a brief segment. On screen, Kenji's biological parents appeared, embracing him tightly on stage and weeping uncontrollably. Kenji's face cycled through shades of green to pale before he finally snapped, shoving them away. "Biological parents? I don't even know you." Kenji glared at the female host, his voice trembling with fury. "Where did you unearth these random nobodies and claim they're my parents? I won't tolerate this. I'll confront you in court." The host, Clara, calmly adjusted her glasses and responded, "Mr. Thorne, before inviting you to this program, we located your adoptive father, Mr. Thorne, who provided a DNA sample. After comparison, we can confirm that you are indeed the child of this couple. If you have any doubts, feel free to request another paternity test. We are more than willing to meet you in court." At that moment, old Mr. Thorne walked onto the stage, lending significant credibility to the host's words. "I can confirm everything the host said is true." Kenji lost control, demanding the cameras be shut off. However, his arrogant outburst only served to irritate everyone present. The cameraman not only refused to stop filming but even zoomed in for close-up shots of his contorted, furious face. The unedited footage was later aired in its entirety. That very day, Kenji's scandal rocketed to the top of trending searches. Clips of his furious outbursts were transformed into reaction memes and GIFs, spreading like wildfire across the internet. Kenji became a laughingstock overnight. He attempted to retaliate online, threatening to sue anyone using his memes. Unexpectedly, instead of intimidating netizens, this only triggered even greater backlash. To make an example, Kenji did sue a few people. Several netizens lost their lawsuits and were each ordered to pay Kenji 20,000 yuan in emotional damages. But this only fueled public anger even more. Soon, Kenji's darkest secrets were thoroughly exposed. During his time studying abroad, he had toyed with others' emotions, falsified his academic credentials, embezzled his adoptive parents' assets, and even heartlessly refused to aid them when they needed help. Shortly after his adoptive brother died, he married his own sister-in-law. These scandals utterly destroyed Kenji's reputation. Some even sent him razor blades and funeral wreaths, demanding he return the family estate to Mr. Thorne. In the end, Kenji lost the lawsuit and completely disappeared from the public eye. The outcome came as no surprise. His only regret was for the Thorn Corporation itself. Ava lowered her head, checking a message from Clara on her phone. "Miss Sterling, the task you assigned is complete." She subtly curved her lips upward without a change in expression. "All right, you can come collect my Lamborghini anytime," she replied. He remained completely oblivious to her secret maneuvers behind the scenes. Hearing that Thorn Corporation was undergoing bankruptcy liquidation, he became interested. Go negotiate with the Thorn side, he instructed. Inform them we're willing to acquire it based on market valuation. Understood, young Master Evelyn. Before leaving, the assistant cast another gossipy glance at Ava. He leaned back in his chair and massaged his temples. It wasn't until a light floral fragrance drifted close that he remembered Ava was still there. As he lifted his head to look at her, she tiptoed and lightly kissed his forehead. Are you truly going to acquire Thorn Corporation? Ava leaned elegantly against the desk, supporting herself with one hand on the surface, and asked meaningfully. He looked up and asked her, do you wish to compete with me? Behind each of them stood powerful interest groups. The Sterling family wouldn't easily relinquish such a lucrative opportunity as Thorn Corporation. He had always maintained a strict separation between emotions and work. No matter how compatible Ava and he were in the bedroom, when it came to their own interests, he would never show mercy. Unexpectedly, Ava hesitated for a few seconds before giving a faint smile and slowly stating, it was supposed to be a certainty for me, but, seeing that you desire it so much, I'll withdraw. He was a little surprised by her willingness to yield. You, me, Ava's slender fingertips brushed over his brows, her gaze oddly gentle. As compensation, have dinner with me tonight. Before he could agree, her fingertip pressed against his lips, and she whispered close to his ear, tonight, you must satiate me completely. His face suddenly flushed with heat. On the day of the Thorn Corporation acquisition, he didn't appear in person. He only sent 2 senior executives to attend, overseeing the entire meeting through a video call. On the computer screen, Mr. Thorn and Sophia entered the conference room together. The endless lawsuits in recent days had drained Mr. Thorn. He looked far older and much more haggard. After reviewing the contract, Sophia suddenly asked a question. All the major companies are exploiting their vulnerability, slashing their offers. Why is your Evelyn Corporation willing to purchase at market price? The female executive from Evelyn Corporation closed the contract folder and smiled faintly. That's our president's decision. Mr. Thorn looked at Sophia. Recalling the photos she had shown him from the Asia-Europe banquet a while ago, photos where the young master of the Evelyn family looked exactly like him, his eyes suddenly turned red. Before the Evelyn Corporation team departed, he grabbed the female executive, looking both ashamed and hopeful, and asked, could you inform your president? Perhaps we could all have a meal together sometime. The female executive didn't respond. Instead, she looked at the camera. From the other side of the screen came a cold male voice, no need. Mr. Thorn instantly fell silent. Bitterness surged into his heart as he turned away and wiped his tears. After the screen went dark, he looked toward the bathroom. There, Ava sat with a black silk blindfold over her eyes and satin ribbons tying her wrists and ankles. He narrowed his eyes. Ava, just how many more tricks do you possess that I don't know about? Ava walked over and knelt in front of him, planting a soft kiss on the back of his hand. That's something you'll have to discover yourself. As she spoke, her hand slid up along his thigh, parting them with an irresistible assertiveness. His breath caught. His body grew hotter under her guidance, and he frowned slightly, staring at her blindfolded eyes. Ava at this moment was overwhelmingly aggressive. It felt as if her searing gaze could pierce right through the thin fabric and land directly on his body. That night was one of utter wildness and indulgence, not ending until dawn. In the morning, he was awakened by a rhythmic knock on the door. Still with his eyes closed, he shifted slightly. His whole body ached as if he'd been run over by a truck. He groaned softly and pushed away Ava's arm that was draped across his waist. At that moment, the old steward's voice came from outside. Young master, Madam is here. The news that Madame Evelyn had arrived jolted him completely awake. He glanced at Ava, who was still sound asleep beside him, his heart pounding. Just as he was about to wake her up, Ava stretched out her arms and pulled him back into her embrace, her voice drowsy and lazy. Baby, let's sleep a bit more. Before she could finish, he clamped his hand over her mouth. Ava's eyes snapped open just in time to see his slightly flushed face as he whispered urgently, Madam's here. You'd better remain here and not come out. If she discovers us. He didn't finish the sentence. Ava raised an eyebrow, grabbed his wrist, and asked in a teasing whisper, discover what? She knew exactly what he meant but still asked intentionally. Ignoring her, he got out of bed to get dressed. The more tense he was, the more relaxed Ava appeared. Even though Madame Evelyn's trusted steward was right outside, she still lay lazily on the bed, propping her head up and leisurely watching him get dressed. Before leaving, he picked up a pillow from the floor and threw it at her. As soon as he stepped out, the old steward coughed awkwardly. Young master, Madam is waiting for you in the back garden. Got it. He hurried to the back garden and saw an elegant figure dressed in a cheongsam feeding the koi fish. Madame Evelyn was nearly 70 years old now, but she still carried herself with grace and had aged well. Mom, he greeted, standing obediently to the side. Madame Evelyn tossed away the fish food and sat under the parasol. She gestured for him to sit down too. Sit. She rarely sought him out except during holidays, and even then, she usually sent someone ahead to inform him. This sudden visit was very unusual. Madame Evelyn remained silent for a long time. He picked up his teacup and had just taken a sip when she asked abruptly, "How long have you been seeing that Sterling girl?" He nearly spat out his tea. He hesitated, unsure whether to tell the truth, but before he could speak, Madame Evelyn continued, "You don't have to conceal it from me. It's natural for men and women to fall in love, I can't prevent you. But of all the women out there, you had to fall for that little vixen from the Sterling family? Do you have any idea how devious she's been since she was a child? You might be brilliant at business, but your ability to judge people still requires refinement. That girl could ensnare you with just a few sweet words. Ethan, while there's still time, sever ties with her cleanly." Just as her voice fell, a clear and lively voice came from behind. "Madam, as the old saying goes, it's better to demolish a temple than to break up a marriage. Why are you speaking ill of the younger generation behind their backs?" He turned and saw Ava, and his mind blanked out completely. Only one word echoed inside, "doomed." He jumped up immediately, grabbed her, and tried to push her out the door, his face cold and his voice low with anger. "Ava, who told you to come out? Depart now." But how could he possibly push Ava away when she was in a temper? Not only did she refuse to retreat, she instead grabbed his wrist and interlaced her fingers with his, walking boldly up to Madame Evelyn. Madame Evelyn slowly raised her head. Years of experience had given her an air of authority that made people's scalps tingle. He went pale. "Mom, I'm sorry. It's not his fault." Ava stood tall and straight, meeting Madame Evelyn's gaze directly, speaking clearly and steadily. "I was the one who seduced Ethan. I chose him. I like him. I'm determined to be with him for the rest of my life. If you wish to punish someone, punish me. It has nothing to do with Ethan." His heart, which had been filled with panic, suddenly calmed down when he heard her words. He turned and looked at Ava in surprise. Ava glanced back at him and gently squeezed his hand. Madame Evelyn narrowed her eyes, her voice icy as she said, "You Sterling family people certainly have a tradition of stealing from the Evelyn family, don't you?" Over 30 years ago, Madame Evelyn's adopted younger brother had been taken away by the Sterling matriarch. Now her adopted son was about to be taken away by that woman's granddaughter. She truly couldn't comprehend what was amiss with the Sterling family. Ava's face was open and fearless, but what she said next sent a jolt through his heart. "Well, who could blame us? The Evelyn family produces such outstanding people, it's only natural for others to admire them." "But," she added, "when I first met Ethan, he wasn't even called Evelyn yet. Ava first met him in a secluded alley. At that time, she was being pursued by her enemies, badly injured and believing she was about to perish. That's when he appeared, wearing his school uniform." The teenage boy's face was clean and delicate, and his voice was clear and gentle when he spoke. That day, when he took off his uniform jacket to help stop Ava's bleeding, the faint scent of soap from the fabric drifted into her nose, something she could never forget even now. Later, Ava encountered some trouble and was sent abroad to study by her family's matriarch. By the time she returned, he had already married someone else. Ava waited for all these years, and now that he was finally single again, never mind that he was the adopted son of her family's sworn enemies, even if he demanded her life, she would willingly give it to him. After hearing her story, Madame Evelyn fell silent once again, but he remained frozen for a long time. After a while, his eyes turned slightly red, and he asked, "You were that girl who used to follow me around back then?" After being taken back to the Thorne family, Kenji often ordered a gang of punks to bully him. But later, there was a sharp-eyed girl with short, neat hair who, ever since he saved her once, would silently wait at the school gate after classes and follow behind him all the way home without saying a word. Upon hearing what he said, Ava frowned in disbelief. "What girl? I attended a prestigious private school, okay? We finished classes by 3:30 in the afternoon. I specifically made the trip just to wait for you." He pressed his lips tightly together, saying nothing, but the look in his eyes was filled with a joyful smile. At that moment, Madame Evelyn's voice came from the side. "I don't care what twisted fate connects you two. As long as you're from the Sterling family, don't even contemplate getting close to Ethan." Ava's expression darkened. His face also grew grim, but he quietly let go of Ava's hand. He couldn't be ungrateful or cause Madame Evelyn heartbreak. "Unless," Madame Evelyn said, tossing a delicate dagger at Ava's feet, "you repay your grandmother's debt here and now. Then I'll consider your marriage to Ethan." Ava's gaze fell on Madame Evelyn's right hand, adorned with a jade bracelet. Years ago, Madame Sterling had stabbed her right hand with a hairpin. Now the only way Ava could repay the debt was by crippling her own right hand. Ava turned to look at him. Seeing his eyes rimmed red as he shook his head at her, her heart twisted in pain. But compared to Ethan, what was the loss of one hand? "Fine. Let's settle the grudge between our families today." Saying that, she lifted the dagger and slashed toward her own right hand. "Don't." He lunged forward, covering her hand with his. There was a soft click. The blade had retracted into the handle. Both of their hands remained unscathed. Ava and he stared blankly at Madame Evelyn, only to see her lightly humph, lift her teacup, take a slow sip, and say unhurriedly, "You've got some resilience, girl." He breathed a huge sigh of relief and smiled carefully as he asked, "And the grudge between the two families?" Madame Evelyn set down her cup, rose to her feet, and walked away, her voice trailing off into the distance. "Naturally, you'll have to help me settle it properly after you marry her." Both of them knew this was her way of giving her blessing. Eva threw herself into his arms, cradling his face and kissing him over and over again. Finally, she pressed her forehead against his and said softly, "Let's go obtain our marriage license tomorrow, okay? I'm afraid that the longer we wait, the more likely something unfavorable will occur." The way she clung to him so nervously made him chuckle helplessly. Their wedding was scheduled for the first day of next month. Eva pestered him relentlessly and finally convinced him to obtain their marriage certificate early. "Darling, I finally have a proper title now," she said with a smile. They walked toward the Maybach, holding their marriage certificate in hand. But just then, a voice called out, interrupting the moment. "Marcus!" He froze for a moment and turned around to see Sophia holding Lily's hand. Both mother and daughter had red eyes as they looked at him. Lily pouted, her voice trembling as she called out, "Dad." Hearing the commotion, Eva lifted her gaze and shot a sharp look at Lily, which made Lily hesitate to approach. She grabbed Sophia's clothes tightly, glaring at Eva with wide eyes. Sophia's gaze darkened, recognizing Eva as the woman who had caused trouble at the wedding. Eva casually placed her arm around his shoulder, her narrow eyes still fixed on Lily. Her voice was calm and cold. "Kid, it's fine to eat whatever you want, but don't speak carelessly." Lily bit her lip, summoning all her courage to shout, "He is my dad." With that, she stepped forward and pushed Eva, nearly in tears. "Don't touch my dad, bad person. Big bad person." Eva looked at the bratty child with a headache, silently contemplating how Arthur was so quiet and well-behaved. She inwardly promised herself she couldn't allow her child to grow up like this. She raised her eyes, giving Sophia a pointed look, her face darkening. It was almost as if she were saying, "If you can't control this child, I'll assume the responsibility." Sophia's anger flared up, but she couldn't allow her daughter to cause a scene. She stepped forward, pulling Lily aside forcefully. "Lily, stand quietly." As Lily moved, her clothes became unbuttoned, and Sophia carefully buttoned them up for her. He used to tend to these small things. He thought Sophia wouldn't notice these minor details, but now it seemed she had been taking good care of Lily. "Mr. Evelyn, I'm sorry, we were too abrupt earlier," Sophia said, her tone full of remorse. "It's fine," he replied. Sophia looked at him, her eyes filled with endless nostalgia and guilt. Even though she knew that the man standing before her was the same one who had died, she didn't have the courage to ask for his forgiveness. Regret filled every corner of her heart. Just as she was about to ask if he'd join her for a meal, Eva shook the marriage certificate in her hand, and the hand resting on his shoulder silently declared her claim over him. "You married her?" Sophia's voice caught in her throat, trembling slightly. He answered softly, "Yes." Eva smirked beside him, "Yep, it's still fresh. We just obtained the certificate and then encountered you. What a coincidence, huh?" At her words, Sophia's eyes seemed to flare up with anger. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to suppress the bitterness in her chest. After a long pause, she finally managed to say, "Congratulations." He opened his mouth to respond, but Eva beat him to it. "Thank you, Ms. Dawson. When we have our wedding, we'll definitely send you an invitation." With that, Eva didn't give Sophia a chance to say anything else. She quickly turned him around and led him away. Watching the two of them depart, Sophia couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. She thought back to when she was the one walking beside Marcus. But now she had lost him. Lily tugged at the corner of her clothes, urging her, "Mom, Dad's walking off with someone else. Aren't we going to pursue them?" Pursue? Sophia's legs felt heavy. She wasn't sure if she even had the right to pursue him anymore. Back then, Marcus had wholeheartedly cared for her and Lily, but at his most difficult time, she had chosen Kenji. Now he was the son of Madame Evelyn, with a status and identity completely different from before, and by his side was Eva, someone with a family background that was equally powerful. How could she possibly have the audacity to disturb his life now? Sophia gritted her teeth, took Lily's hand, and began walking in the opposite direction. "Lily, let's allow your dad to pursue his own happiness." On the way back, Eva held his hand tightly, as if afraid that if she loosened her grip, he would vanish. He knew what she was thinking. He sighed softly and smiled. "Eva, I'm not going anywhere, but if you keep squeezing my hand like this, I might just perish from the pain." Eva took a deep breath, frowned, and finally released her grip. "Sorry, I'm just truly frightened." "Frightened of what? Our bond isn't that profound, there's a 7-year gap between us. What if Sophia shamelessly pursues you and you become swayed by her?" Normally, Eva always appeared calm and composed, with a family upbringing that kept her emotions hidden. They had been together for a while now, and he had never seen her so troubled over anything. It seemed that she was genuinely worried that Sophia might reclaim him. He felt a little touched and somewhat amused. The old Marcus is gone. His past and memories are merely a fleeting breeze, never to return. And the person I, Ethan, choose is you, Ava. Upon hearing this, the tension in Ava's face eased a little. She turned her head to look at him, her expression unusually serious. Then can you kiss me every day, just to seal the deal? He almost laughed at this childish request. He wasn't planning to respond, but just as he was about to look away, Ava's delicate hand suddenly cupped the back of his head, pulling him into a kiss. She kissed him deeply, as if trying to extract all the air from his lungs, not releasing him until he was on the verge of suffocation. If you won't come to me, I'll come to you. No chance to escape, Ava said with a playful yet loving gaze, her voice incredibly sweet. Her words made his heart race uncontrollably. The day before their wedding, he received a delivery box. He thought it was a gift from Ava, but when he opened it, he found a Hessian jade piece knot. Inside was a handwritten note. This was the heirloom jade pendant your grandfather gave me when I married. Now I'm passing it on to you, wishing you a joyous marriage. He instantly realized who had sent the jade pendant. A wave of complicated emotions spread through him. When he needed his family's care the most, they had given all their love to Kenji. Now that Marcus was gone, they finally thought of compensating him. Maybe Marcus would forgive them, but Ethan wouldn't. He resealed the box and had it sent back to Mr. Thorne. Young Master Evelyn says he appreciates Mr. Thorne's gesture, but the item is too precious for him to accept. Mr. Thorne should keep it. His father stared at the returned jade pendant for a long time, clearly stunned. Not long after, he fell seriously ill and began to lose his sanity. He would hold on to Marcus's childhood photo album, telling anyone he met about Marcus's childhood, often mistaking other people's sons for him, repeatedly saying, "Dad was wrong, I'm sorry." But all of this no longer mattered to him. Ava and he held a grand wedding, and it was dubbed the wedding of the century not just because of the high-profile guests and dazzling stars, but also because of the historic reconciliation between Madame Evelyn and Madame Sterling, two lifelong rivals. They had to sit at the same table for the sake of their younger generations, their faces polite but their hearts still at odds. Throughout the event, Ava and he anxiously watched the two elderly women. Fortunately, in the end, they didn't argue. On their wedding night, he untied his tie, exhausted to the point where he felt like his bones might fall apart. Ava walked over slowly, unpinning her hair. Her fingers lightly grazed his jaw as she stared at him with an intense gaze. That look made him want to flee. But the next second, she grabbed his wrist. Just as he was about to move, Ava pulled out a bottle of essential oil and began massaging his shoulders, though her technique was a bit clumsy. "What's on your mind, huh? Why's your face so flushed?" Ava teased with a mischievous smile, raising an eyebrow. "Wait, no, it's not bro anymore, it's husband now." She leaned in and gave him a light kiss on the lips, her voice seductive. "Husband, tonight is long, and you're not allowed to claim fatigue." He was speechless. He knew it. Ava, with her dark heart, wouldn't let him off that easily. Their intimate silhouettes by the window were seen by a woman outside the villa. Her face was deathly pale, and it felt as if 1,000 needles were stabbing her heart. "Marcus," Sophia whispered, and if anyone had seen her lost expression, they would have thought they'd seen a ghost. Ava gently covered him with the blanket, kissed his forehead, and got up to leave the room. Glancing at the screenshot of the surveillance footage the steward had handed over, her narrow eyes narrowed, and a cold chill radiated from them. "Let's go. We're going to have a little chat with Miss Dawson." Under the cold white moonlight, Ava, dressed in a black gown, walked out of the villa and headed straight for Sophia, who was standing in the distance. The two women exchanged a look, neither of them in the mood for pleasantries. Sophia's anger was boiling over, almost transforming into a blade ready to tear Ava to pieces. "I was wondering why that Persian cat kept meowing so much today. Turns out it was because another one of its kind broke in." Ava lit a cigarette, took a drag, and slowly exhaled the smoke. The white mist was quickly blown away by the wind, revealing her mocking gaze. Sophia's face turned ashen, and through gritted teeth she spat out, "Ava, you despicable little woman. Even if you tricked Marcus into returning to you, he'll awaken one day. When he awakens, he'll come back to me, and the three of us will be reunited sooner or later." Sophia wasn't entirely confident, but she still felt that the bond they once shared was too deep to be broken so easily. And of course, there was Lily. Ava raised an eyebrow, her eyes darkening to the point that they seemed to swallow all the light. Just then, a clear, childish voice rang out from behind. "Mom!" Arthur, holding a robot, sleepily walked over and grabbed her hand. Ava's expression immediately softened, the anger in her eyes vanishing in an instant. She bent down, picked Arthur up, and said in a gentle voice, "Why aren't you asleep at this hour?" Arthur looked at Sophia. "I'm afraid that bad aunt will bully you." The little guy's sharp eyes stared at Sophia, making her face flush with embarrassment. Ava chuckled lightly, then turned to Sophia to boast, "Did you hear that? My son, raised by Ethan and me, just called you the bad aunt." She emphasized the word aunt. Arthur had gotten up in the middle of the night just to support Ava. He nestled in her arms and, in a crisp voice, said, "Mom, let's go back." The wind outside is cold, and if you catch a cold, Dad will be heartbroken. Upon hearing this, Sophia felt as though a knife had been stabbed into her heart. Her brows furrowed tightly, a feeling of unspeakable bitterness flooding her heart. Even though Lily was here, she wouldn't be this clever or say something as thoughtful as "I'm worried about Mom." At that moment, Sophia's jealousy toward Ava reached its peak. Ava glanced at her out of the corner of her eye, holding Arthur as she walked back inside, deliberately saying, "All right, Mom will listen to you and Dad." The mother and son walked into the villa, leaving Sophia standing in the cold wind. It was unclear how long she stood there, but eventually, the Dawson family's car appeared with its high beams on. The driver hesitated before speaking. "Miss, the old lady asked you to come home quickly. She said not to embarrass her in front of the Sterling family." Sophia gritted her teeth, not expecting Ava to be so cunning. She had called her grandmother and reported her, leaving her no choice but to get into the car with a dark expression. The wedding of the century for the Evelyn family dominated the front pages of all major news outlets for an entire week. Everyone envied the fact that Evelyn's eldest son had married the beautiful and capable Ava. However, the Sterling family's eldest daughter, who rarely made a public appearance on social media, registered an account on a popular platform that same night, posting only a few words, "It was I who climbed too high." After the wedding, Ava spoiled him immensely. Luxury cars, watches, nothing was off limits. She always returned home by 9 o'clock, no matter how important the social gathering or how much her friends implored her to stay. She only had one thing to say: "Sorry guys, curfew at 9. Ava made no secret of the fact that she obeyed him without question. People in their social circle couldn't help but joke that the dignified eldest daughter of the Sterling family had transformed into a love-stricken woman after marriage. She raised her glass with no change in expression and said, "I enjoy it." The looks on everyone's faces were priceless. From then on, no one dared to utter anything more. After all, no one desired to be force-fed so much sentiment. On his birthday, Ava hosted a lavish celebration for him on a cruise, inviting all their friends. Arthur had grown into a handsome young boy and performed a violin piece for him on stage. "Dad, I love you." Arthur kissed his cheek, looking at him with eyes full of affection. Lily, who had sneaked onto the cruise, witnessed the scene. Her eyes immediately filled with tears, and she bit her lip to hold them back. Dad didn't like disobedient children. When he headed to the lounge, Lily rushed over and stopped him. With a cautious look, she carefully presented him a drawing. It was a picture of a birthday cake with 3 stick figures smiling beside it. "Dad, happy birthday. Lily misses you." He looked at Lily. She had grown taller, her once round face now a little sharper, and her features resembled Sophia's more and more. The little princess she used to be was now much gentler and clearer when she looked at people. He calmly took the drawing from her. "Thank you. Where's your family? Go back now." Lily trailed behind him, looking wronged. "Mom doesn't know I came to find you. I had the butler bring me here." As soon as she spoke, several bodyguards from the Dawson family rushed over, flustered. "Miss, little miss, we finally found you." Seeing him, they looked awkward. "Young Master Evelyn, we're terribly sorry. Little miss has caused you trouble." "It's fine," he said coldly and turned to leave. The next second, Lily gently grasped his fingertips. I don't want to go back. It's Lily's fault. Lily knows she was wrong. I'll change." With that, her eyes reddened again. "Lily won't eat snacks anymore. Whatever Dad doesn't permit, I won't do it. Please don't let them take me back." He felt a sharp pain in his heart. He paused for a moment before slowly saying, "Be good and return home." After saying that, he broke free from Lily's grip and walked away. Afterward, Lily would occasionally visit the Sterling family year after year. Sophia scolded her a few times, but Lily didn't care and still secretly came to find him. Later, Arthur gained admission to the best university, and Lily, with her dancing talent, became his schoolmate. Arthur told him that Lily took great care of him at school. Once, she even called him brother in front of others. Of course, she did this to get closer to him. Ava kept a tight grip on Arthur, never allowing him to get too close to her. Even though Ava and he had reached middle age, Sophia had never remarried. Ava remained vigilant, not allowing her any chance to re-enter their lives. The year Arthur graduated, Ava and he attended his graduation party. As expected, Sophia and Lily were also present. They stood not far from them, looking at them as they took photos together, their eyes filled with envy. After a while, Lily quietly moved closer, standing just under a meter away from him, trying to join the photo. Sophia, not wishing to lose face, lowered her head and coughed twice, then joined her. However, he didn't give them a single glance the entire time. That same year, Mr. Thorne passed away and entrusted his entire inheritance to him. The lawyer conveyed his final wish. Mr. Thorne stated that these assets are for you to dispose of as you see fit. For the first 30 years of his life, he had given everything to the Thorne family. This inheritance was rightfully his. He didn't wish to be connected to the Thorne family any longer, so he donated it all. On the day they went to donate to the welfare center, Ava was with him, and they were surrounded by reporters and the director of the center, exchanging pleasantries. As they passed a street food stall, the city management ordered the vendor to leave, but the man refused and threw himself on the ground, throwing a tantrum. "I'm the eldest son of the Thorne family. If you dare touch me, I'll ensure you regret it." Hearing the commotion, he looked over and saw a disheveled Kenji with white hair arguing with the city management over the stall. There was a glaring scar on his face, a result of a prison altercation. The privileged, scheming boy he once knew had long disappeared. As he watched, he didn't feel any sense of satisfaction. Instead, he felt a strange sense of fate playing tricks on him. Ava's gentle voice brought him back to the present. "Ethan, what's wrong?" He smiled and shook his head, feeling at peace. "Nothing. Let's go." Everything from the past faded away like the wind. The future still held brighter years ahead. Arthur linked his arm with his, glancing back at the vendor. When the vendor saw him looking, he quickly looked away and lowered his head in a hurry. Arthur thought to himself that this person was truly strange. The sunlight shone on his face, and he squinted his eyes, watching the blue sky in the distance as a flock of geese soared above, choosing their path. He smiled faintly. In this life, he had finally made the right choice.